The fluorescent lights of the grand ballroom in downtown Chicago hummed like a swarm of angry bees, casting a sterile glow over the sea of tailored suits and sequined gowns. At the center of it all stood Elena Vasquez, a 28-year-old woman in a simple black dress that cost less than the champagne flutes being passed around. Her dark hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her makeup was minimal, just enough to hide the exhaustion etched into her face. She clutched a violin case like it was a lifeline, her knuckles white against the worn leather. The room buzzed with whispers. Who invited the help? One investor sneered, loud enough for her to hear. Probably some diversity hire. Another chuckled, swirling his whiskey. Elena's cheeks burned, but she didn't flinch. She'd faced worse. If you're loving this story already, hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss what happens next. It's about to get wild. The occasion was the annual gala for Vanguard Ventures, a cutthroat private equity firm that turned startups into empires or crushed them into dust. Tonight, they were celebrating a $2 billion fund closure, and the guest list read like a Forbes cover: tech moguls, hedge fund titans, even a senator or two. The entertainment? A string quartet from Juilliard booked for $50,000. But an hour before showtime, the lead violinist had bailed, food poisoning, or so the email claimed. Desperate, the event planner had scoured local talent agencies and found Elena, a last-minute substitute recommended by a friend of a friend. Her rate? $500. The planner had laughed when Elena quoted it. Fine, whatever, just show up and don't embarrass us. Now, as Elena stood by the stage, the quartet's remaining members eyed her like she was a knockoff purse at a designer sale. You sure you can keep up? The cellist, a smug Yale grad named Preston, muttered. This isn't open mic night at Starbucks. Elena forced a smile. I'll manage. The MC, a slick-talking VP named Marcus Hale, took the mic to introduce the performance. Ladies and gentlemen, before we dive into the future of finance, let's enjoy some culture, courtesy of our world-class musicians. The crowd clapped politely, already reaching for their phones. Elena stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding like a war drum. The quartet launched into Vivaldi's Four Seasons, a safe choice for the elite. But from the first note, something was off. Preston rushed the tempo, the viola player fumbled a transition, and the second violinist kept glancing at Elena like she was the problem. By the time they hit the presto movement, the performance was unraveling. A hedge fund manager in the front row yawned theatrically. Someone whispered, "This is what $50,000 gets you?" Elena's bow trembled, but not from nerves. She was furious. She'd spent years honing her craft, sacrificing everything, and now she was collateral damage in their incompetence. As the piece limped to its end, the applause was tepid, almost pitying. Marcus jogged back to the mic, his smile strained. Well, that was lively! Let's give it up for the musicians! The crowd clapped again, already turning back to their conversations. Backstage, the quartet erupted. You threw us off, Preston hissed, jabbing a finger at Elena. What are you, some community college dropout? The event planner, a frazzled woman named Claire, overheard and stormed in. You're done, she snapped at Elena. Pack your cheap violin and go. We'll mail your check. Elena's eyes narrowed. You're blaming me for that mess? Claire laughed, cold and sharp. Sweetie, you don't belong here. This is the big leagues. The words stung like salt in a wound, but Elena didn't argue. She snapped her case shut and walked out, her heels clicking against the marble floor. The ballroom's laughter followed her like a shadow. Outside, the Chicago wind whipped through the streets, biting at her skin. Elena hailed a cab and slumped into the back seat, staring at the violin case on her lap. Most people would have cried. Most people would have let it go. But Elena wasn't most people. She pulled out her phone and opened an encrypted messaging app. Her fingers flew across the screen, typing a single sentence. It's time. The reply came instantly. Are you sure? Elena didn't hesitate. Do it. The next morning, Vanguard Ventures headquarters was a fortress of glass and steel, its lobby buzzing with employees clutching $6 lattes. At 9:02 a.m., every screen in the building, from the trading floor monitors to the CEO's private office, flashed black. Then, a video began to play. It was Elena, standing alone in a dimly lit studio, her violin resting on her shoulder. But this wasn't the timid substitute from the gala. Her eyes blazed with a fire that could burn cities. She spoke, her voice steady and commanding. "My name is Elena Vasquez. Last night you laughed at me. You called me an amateur. You threw me out like trash. But you made a mistake. You didn't just insult me, you insulted her." The camera panned to a framed photograph on the wall, a woman with Elena's eyes holding a Grammy. The caption read, "Isabella Vasquez, 1975 to 2018. Violin virtuoso, philanthropist, billionaire." The office froze. Marcus Hale, watching from the 32nd floor, dropped his coffee. Preston, glued to his desk, turned ghost white. The video continued. Elena raised her bow, and the first notes of Paganini's Caprice No. 24 sliced through the silence. Fierce, flawless, impossible. She wasn't just good. She was a force of nature, every note a dagger aimed at their egos. As she played, text overlaid the screen. Elena Vasquez, prodigy, Juilliard graduate at 16, Tanglewood Fellow, soloist with the Berlin Philharmonic at 19. The employees gasped. This wasn't a substitute. This was a legend in hiding. Elena's voice returned, calm but cutting. "My mother built half the companies in your portfolio. She funded your dreams before you had the guts to dream them. And last night you disrespected her daughter." The video ended with a final twist. A legal document flashed on screen, a trust agreement signed by Isabella Vasquez, naming Elena as the majority stakeholder in Vanguard Ventures' parent company. The room erupted in chaos. The CEO, a silver-haired titan named Richard Klein, stormed into the boardroom barking orders. "Who the hell is this girl?" His assistant, pale as paper, handed him a tablet. "Sir, she owns us, 51%. Richard's face crumpled. He'd spent decades building his empire, only to learn it was never his. By noon, the story was everywhere. CNBC ran the headline, "Wannabe violinist revealed as secret billionaire heiress," and she just took over a $10 billion firm. X was a wildfire of memes and hot takes. Hashtag Elena Vasquez trended for 48 hours straight. But Elena wasn't done. That afternoon, she walked back into the grand ballroom, this time not as a substitute, but as the keynote speaker. The same crowd that had mocked her now sat in stunned silence. She wore a crimson gown that cost more than their annual bonuses, her violin case replaced by a sleek briefcase. "You judged me by my cover," she said, her voice echoing through the hall. "But books aren't just covers, and neither am I." She didn't fire anyone. That would have been too easy. Instead, she announced a new initiative. Every Vanguard portfolio company would mentor underrepresented talent, musicians, coders, dreamers who'd been dismissed like she was. "You'll learn what I did," she said, locking eyes with Preston, who looked ready to vomit. "Talent doesn't need your approval. It just needs a chance." The crowd erupted in applause, some genuine, some desperate. Elena didn't smile. She didn't need their approval either. As she left the stage, a young woman in the back, a server from the gala, still in her uniform, caught her eye. "Thank you," the girl whispered. Elena paused, then handed her a business card. "Call me Monday. We're hiring." It was a small moment, but it was everything. Elena wasn't just reclaiming her power. She was rewriting the rules for everyone who'd been counted out. Months later, Vanguard's profits soared, fueled by Elena's uncanny instinct for spotting raw potential. She performed sold-out concerts on the side, each one a middle finger to the doubters. But the gala night stayed with her, not the humiliation. That was fuel. It was the memory of her mother's photograph, the one she'd kept hidden to live a normal life. Isabella had taught her to play before she could read, to fight with grace, to rise without apology. Elena had honored her in the only way that mattered, by becoming undeniable. And that's the story of Elena Vasquez, a woman who walked into a lion's den with a violin and walked out with an empire. She didn't just prove them wrong, she changed the game. Now, I want to hear from you. From which part of the country are you watching this video? Drop it in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation going.